Billy the Kid had cheated death so many times he'd stopped worrying about it. 21 years old, multiple men killed to his name. He'd been captured, sentenced to hang, and escaped a guarded jailhouse, killing 2 deputies on his way out. By the summer of 1881, he was hiding in plain sight around Fort Sumner, New Mexico, trusting that loyal friends would keep his location quiet. Sheriff Pat Garrett knew exactly where to look. On the night of July 14, 1881, Garrett was waiting in the darkened bedroom of a rancher named Pete Maxwell, quietly gathering information. He didn't have to wait long. Billy walked in from outside, no boots, having stepped out in his socks to cut some beef from a hanging carcass. He sensed something wrong in the darkness. In Spanish, he whispered his last words. ¿Quién es? Who is it? Garrett fired twice. The first shot hit Billy the Kid in the chest, just above the heart. He was dead before he hit the floor. 21 years old. No famous last dance, no blazing finale. Just a dark room, a whispered question, and 2 shots from a man he used to call a friend. Wild Bill Hickok. James Butler Hickok spent 20 years staring men down before pulling the trigger. He had a rule he never broke. Never sit with your back to the door. He understood better than anyone that the danger you don't see is the danger that kills you. Then one afternoon, he broke the rule. On August 2nd, 1876, Hickok was playing poker at Nuttall and Mann's Saloon number 10 in Deadwood, South Dakota. The only open seat faced away from the entrance. He sat down anyway. He was dealt 2 black aces, 2 black eights, and a 5th card that no one would ever agree on. Jack McCall walked in behind him, pressed the revolver to the back of his head, and fired once. Wild Bill Hickok died face down on the poker table. He was 39 years old. Those 2 black aces and 2 black eights became known forever afterward as the dead man's hand, and still carry that name in every poker room in the world today. McCall claimed it was revenge for his brother. A minors court acquitted him. Then a federal court retried him, convicted him, and hanged him in 1977. Wild Bill eventually got some justice, just not the kind that brought him back. Jesse James. Jesse James was the most wanted man in America, and he knew it. By 1882, he was living under a false name in St. Joseph, Missouri, calling himself Thomas Howard, keeping a low profile, trying to look like an ordinary family man. His gang had collapsed. The men around him were newer, younger, and one of them had already made a deal with the state. Robert Ford secretly negotiated a $10,000 reward and a full pardon in exchange for delivering Jesse James, dead or alive. On the morning of April 3, 1882, Jesse was inside his home with his wife, Robert Ford, and Ford's brother, Charlie. Jesse noticed a picture on the wall was crooked and dusty. In what would be the final act of his life, he climbed onto a chair to straighten it, and took off his guns before he did. Robert Ford shot him in the back of the head. Jesse James was dead at 34. The most feared outlaw in America died unarmed in his own living room, with his back turned, fixing a picture frame. Ford was convicted of murder that same day. The governor pardoned him within hours. He spent the rest of his life being called a coward. Because he was. Doc Holliday. Doc Holliday had been dying for his entire adult life. Tuberculosis had gotten into his lungs when he was in his early 20s, and from that point forward, he knew it was only a matter of time. He moved west, chasing dry air and warm climates. He gambled, he drank, he fought. He stood beside Wyatt Earp at the OK Corral. He became a legend, and the whole time, his lungs were slowly losing the war. By 1887, they'd lost it. Holliday checked into a hotel near a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, hoping the famous hot springs might slow what couldn't be stopped. Weeks passed. He wasted away in his room, barely able to breathe, nothing left of the dangerous man he'd been. On November 8, 1887, he asked for a glass of whiskey. He drank it. Then he looked down at his feet, bare, because he'd always figured he'd die with his boots on, and said his last words out loud. This is funny. He was 36 years old. The man who'd courted death in every saloon from Georgia to Arizona died quietly in a hotel bed, in his socks, without a gun in his hand. He found it funny. That's either the saddest or most perfect ending imaginable, depending on how you look at it. Belle Starr. They called her the Bandit Queen. Belle Starr ran with outlaws, married outlaws, and operated a safe haven for fugitives in Indian Territory. She was convicted of horse theft and rode into court like royalty on a black horse, pistols on her hips. She was defiant at every turn. The law could barely hold her. Someone else decided to handle it differently. On February 3, 1889, 2 days before her 41st birthday, Belle was riding